All right. All right. All right. So, guys, let's hold that for the end, okay? Um, we've put, we've um, made a significant offer to Pete, and what Davis says correct. He's entitled to go out and explore his market, and that's what he's doing. Personally, this has been an exhausting conversation and negotiation. I mean, Soto was tough. This is worse. Okay, and a lot of it is, um, you know, we've made a significant. I don't like the structures that are being presented back to us. I think it's highly asymmetric against us, and I feel strongly about it. And so, I will never say no. There's always the possibility. But the reality is, we're moving forward, and we continue to bring in players. As we continue to, bring in players, the reality is, it becomes harder to fit Pete into what is a very expensive, you know, group of players that we already have, and that's where we are. And I'm being brutally honest. I don't like the negotiations. I don't like what's been presented to us. Um, listen, maybe that changes, and certainly, I'll always stay flexible. If it stays this way, I think we're going to have to get used to the fact that, we may have to go forward and with the existing players that we have.
Mets talk live, we keep it raw. Sipping on Henny, we breaking the law. Queens represent, bitches know the name. New York Mets, we bringing the flame. So raise your glass, here's to the Mets. Ballin' harder than the rest, no regrets. CitiField rocking, the vibe's electric. Ain't no stopping us, we getting hectic. Riding with the crew, we do it right. Mets in our soul, we ballin' all night. Queens to the core, we bringing the ruckus. Shout out to the fans, we live in the touch. Playoff dreams, we stacking the wins. Mets talk live, let the madness begin.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Talk Live right here on the channel. And as you just heard from the horse's mouth, from owner Steve Cohen, exactly what has been going on with the Pete Alonso negotiations. And we finally heard it from the person himself, right? It's not Andy Martino. It's not Tim Healy. It's not Toronto Blue Jays reporters. It's not any other reporter that is getting it from a quote-unquote source. It is from the horse's mouth. You knew it was going to be a question in this amazing day at CitiField, which is obviously a fan fest for the New York Mets. And this is exactly what we've all been trying to figure out, right? A lot of Met fans believe that David Stearns was just being a cheapo, was just being a small market GM, and he was just not structuring a contract the way a lot of teams do, right? Pay a little bit more, give a little bit of money. If you want the guy, go get him. This has always been Steve Cohen very involved in these negotiations. And this is what we didn't know. And now we have an answer towards that. We have an answer that Steve Cohen has been very much involved in these negotiations. And it hasn't been just Steve Cohen in the back while David Stearns is in the room with Pete Alonso and Scott Boras on his own. This has been also a Steve Cohen project when it comes to Pete Alonso. And this is exactly what we wanted to know. Now, there's a lot more to talk about. Again, Steve Cohen was very detailed. He was, like he said, brutally honest. And you know what? As a fan of a team that has an owner who is willing to speak publicly in front of Met fans and know that he probably wasn't going to get the best reaction. And oh, by the way, he did get a nice little golf clap after he said what he said, because I think most Met fans, if not all, should appreciate the honesty from our owner. Now, yes, David Stearns got booed, which is interesting in the total spectrum of the data. He got very much booed loudly when he was talking. So again, the fact that we did not know if Steve Cohen would just left David Stearns to, do what he does. Even when it comes to Pete Alonso, clearly we know now that Steve Cohen has been a big part of these negotiations. And now we have to talk about what are the major issues, right? Steve Cohen talked about structure. That is a very broad statement, right? It can mean deferred money. It can be years. It can be money in total, yearly, AAV. It can be total number contract money-wise overall. There's a lot that can go into that. So when you really look at it, we have to look at it in two different ways. And Rock, I see your super chat. I'll answer it in just a second. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. But the fact of the matter is that we don't know exactly all the details. We still don't know what the exclusive offer Pete Alonso and Scott Boras offered the Mets. What we do know is that the Mets and Steve Cohen did not like any part of it. And remember, the Mets offered him a contract, and a day or two later, Pete Alonso and Boras sent over an exclusive 3-year deal to the Mets. Clearly, the Mets didn't like any part of that contract that they offered. And there's been reports that the Mets have pulled their offer, but that hasn't really been confirmed, right? Steve Cohen also said during that little press conference answering that question in regards to Pete Alonso is that he's still open. He's still flexible, as he said. And what that means to me, I don't think it's about the years or the money when it comes to Pete Alonso. I think that the exclusive offer, I think Pete Alonso didn't like the fact that he got a similar AAV than what he was offered a year and a half ago with that 7 for 158. It was right around that number AAV wise. It was about $1.5 million more. I think Pete Alonso asked for an extreme AAV for that short-term deal. I think it was probably 30 million per, if not more, per year. That's what I believe. Because I don't understand, if it was only $2 or $3 million, you really think Steve Cohen would have been very upset about that? He seemed very adamant that he did not like the structure of the deal. Clearly, that had to mean a hell of a lot more money that they were offering per AAV. And it might have been, something different, like a bonus that was too crazy of a number. But I think it has to do with the AAV, right? If you do the math really quickly, let's say we don't really know the exact number. Some reports saying that the Mets have offered a little bit more than the 68 to 70 million. It was around 75 million. So again, that's around $25 million per year. I find it hard to believe if it was $2, $3, even $4 million more, the Mets wouldn't do that. I think Pete Alonso clearly asked for extreme high AAV, probably north of $30 million, if not more than $30 million. That's what I believe. Because it really does not make sense that if they were a few $1 million, I'm talking about like $2 or $3 million apart, they could have easily fixed that. Like, I don't think Steve Cohen is going to, close up the wallet now for $2 or $3 million. The way he spoke, it was clear that the structure, whatever it might be, it was both 3-year deals. The Mets offered 3 years, and Pete Alonso offered a 3-year deal. Even an opt-out here or there. And I know the Mets deferred some money. And I still don't think the deferment is going to have Steve Cohen push back and said what he did, how he wasn't very happy with these negotiations. I don't think he would go that far, in my opinion. I truly don't believe that he would just walk away based on deferments or a couple of $1 million. I think the AAV that Pete Alonso offered, and I'm still surprised nobody had aired that out and figured that out yet. And by the way, I'm going to read what Scott Boras said not too long after the Mets had their amazing day, and Steve Cohen had that 1 and 52 little answer to the question about Pete Alonso and the negotiations. Scott Boras came out and said this: Pete's free agent contract structure requests are identical to the standards and practices of other clubs who have signed similarly situated qualifying offer all-star level players. Nothing different, just established fairness standards. Well, that's clearly not true. That's the problem. That it's a clear lie by Scott Boras. It's a clear lie, because if it was by the standards of other teams and caliber players of who he's getting matched with when it comes to comparing this to each of these players, clearly he's talking about Matt Olson and Freddie Freeman. The Mets have give him an AAV similar, a few $1,000,000 higher than Olson and a few $1,000,000 below Freddie Freeman AAV. So he is between those two players, which you have to compare. You're not comparing him to Anthony Santander or Juan Soto or Francisco Lindor. That has nothing to do with it. You're not going to compare a first baseman to a right fielder or a shortstop. You're just not doing that. You're comparing him to his counterparts, which are first basemen. That's what you're looking at. He is not better than Matt Olson. The Mets says, you know what? Because you're a Met, because you're a lifelong Met, and because we want you, we're going to give you a few $1,000,000 more than what Matt Olson is making. But we're not giving you more than Freddie Freeman. And they shouldn't do that. Which I think, what is Freddie Freeman making? Around $27, $28 million per year? I don't see what is the issue with the Pete. And that's how you know the comment by Boras is a complete lie. Clearly, he's trying to make his client look good, which is understandable, but it's a clear lie. Well, no, easy. If he compares it to Christian Walker, then the Mets still look in favor of that. They still look good in this part. Right? And that's the idea. And AB is saying it right now in the chat as well with the whole amazing day thing. You see how I don't even think Toronto was that serious with Pete Alonso either. This was this seemed like a Boras thing as well. A couple of days before the Mets Fan Fest, it seemed just like that. It's very interesting to me how the fact that the New York Mets offered Pete Alonso a contract. Now, the years are clearly, nobody's given him what he originally thought he was going to get in the 5, 6, 7 year range. That's not happening. There's a reason why he gave an offer of a 3-year deal to the Mets in a counter offer, right? Because he knows he's probably not going to get more than a 3-year deal, maybe a 4th year. But I still believe the Mets are willing to go to a 4th year, add in a little bit more money to the overall contract. I think they're willing to do that. And again, Steve Cohen said in this interview that he is still flexible. Like, this is not a stern, this is the number, this is the years, that's it. He said he's still flexible and open to this. That's a fact. He just said that from the horse's mouth. This is not Andy Martino saying it, Tim Healy, Joel Sherman, Ken Rosenthal, nobody, except from the guy you want to hear it from. And he said it. And he said he was brutally honest. And he also said that we had to move on. We're still open. We're still flexible. It's up to Pete Alonso. This is what he said. It's up to Pete Alonso at this point now to decide. So clearly the offer, if it's on the table, it's possibly on the table, but it could also, lead to open negotiations still as well. But if Toronto was so in on Pete Alonso and it was so to the 10-yard line, according to Andy Martino, why did he meet with the Los Angeles Angels? And why haven't he signed with the Angels already? Because I don't believe anybody is giving him more than what the Mets are offering, because he would have signed already. That's what the problem is. And that is with the conflicting reports that don't make sense. And this is basically Boras propaganda. And the Boras propaganda is starting to get aired out. And Boras, who's been probably lying this whole time, definitely got aired out and made it very obvious when Steve Cohen spoke. I don't think Boras was expecting Steve Cohen to blatantly talk exactly what he disliked about the negotiations. And right away, Boris had to counteract that and talk about a bunch of nonsense in the comments. And I want to read it again in his quote for people who are just tuning in. And by the way, thank you for tuning in. We're up to 260 people in the chat right now. This is what Scott Boras says in accordance with what Steve Cohen said. Pete's free agent contract structure requests are identical to the standards and practices of other clubs who have signed similar situated qualifying offer all-star level. Now, he's clearly talking about the Braves with Olsen and the Dodgers with Freeman. Both of those were longer-term deals. What was I believe the Freeman deal was a 5-year deal, and Olsen was what, an 8-year deal? So if we're going on the structure of other guys that other clubs have practiced who have signed similar situated qualifying offer / all-star level, and he's also talking about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He talked about the qualifying offer. So let's say if he's not talking about Olsen and not talking about Freeman, he's talking about the qualifying offer, all-star level, which, again, thank you, Bravos, as the Brave friend is in there. Also, 8 years, exactly. And by the way, the Mets offered him 7 for $158, which was just under Matt Olson. You see what I'm saying here? So there was a contract that was very similar to what Olson got, a year less and $10 million less, about a year and a half ago. 162, okay. And Freeman was 6 years, 167. So they offered him between Olsen and Freeman. Once again, the Mets have been very walking down this line of what they have with Pete Alonso. 6 years for Freeman, 8 years for Olsen. They were willing to go right between that number of 7 years and between Olsen and Freeman, and they were going to 158. So right in the middle of the years and around similar overall number to both Freeman and Olsen. Olsen's a little bit younger, and Freeman was a couple of years older. You see the problem here? The Mets have been very status quo and on the same line, even with their new offer that is around $68-70 million. That's around $22 million a year, $22-23 million a year, which is still in between Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson, and this is the thing where Billy Epler or Brody Van Wagenen, whoever was the GM at the time that offered Pete Alonso that contract, they valued Pete Alonso between Olsen and Freeman. David Stearns is doing the same thing. Steve Cohen is doing the same thing. So at some point, you got to start blaming, if you haven't already, Pete Alonso, because there is the issue. Like, that is the biggest issue that I don't understand. It's just amazing to me that people still think that the Mets are at fault here. And, you know what? There's a blame to go around for sure. But it's clear the Mets have value, even a year and a half ago, they evaluated Pete Alonso the same way they were coming after his very good 2022 season. When they offered him, going into the 2023 season, they offered him a contract. So they evaluated him between Olsen and between Freeman. They're doing the exact same thing now, just the years are different because it's 2 years older. Pete Alonso was, 28 years old at the time? Now he's 30. And nobody's giving him more than a 4-year deal at this point. So why do the Mets? And I still believe the Mets will go to a 4-year deal. So I'm not worried about that. And that's the annoying part, right? And for all the fans that booed David Stearns, you guys are idiots. I'm sorry, right? I know some of them might even be my friends that I've gone to many games with, many road trips with throughout the years. But if you boo David Stearns, you're an idiot. I'm sorry to say. You really are, right? Because that's the same guy you're booing that half the people that were booing said the Mets were going to win 75 games last year, and they won 89. They made the playoffs and got to Game 6 of the NLCS when nobody thought. And those are the same people that probably quit on the team last year. So that's a joke. I'm sorry to say. This guy in year one won 89 games with a roster you believe that weren't good and got the game 6 to the NLCS. Sorry. Right? And again, Andy Martino also came out and says that he believed, and I think it was Will Salmon as well, if I'm not mistaken. Will Salmon might have had this, maybe not Andy Martino, but I think Andy Martino like reiterated it on From Night in New York. He said that the Mets offer was a little bit more than $70 million. So it might have been 72, 73, 74, up to 75. So if you do the math, let's say the contract overall AAV was between 23 and $25 million. Look at the numbers Olsen got and look at the numbers Freeman got AAV. It's direct. It's basically in the middle. Exactly what Epler offered Pete Alonso a year and a half ago. Like, there's no difference. They evaluated him the same way. So whatever metrics Epler was looking at, whatever metrics David Stearns is looking at, it still directly aligns with what the Mets' thought process was for the last 2 seasons with Pete Alonso when they got these contracts offered to Pete Alonso. So that's where we are right now. And Jacob deGrom never said he wanted to stay with the Mets. All right. I still don't believe he wanted to be in New York anymore, to be quite honest with you. And again, the Mets weren't going to give him what the Rangers got him for. So, yeah, it's not happening. And the Mets never offered Jacob deGrom a contract because they didn't want him back. Right. And you know what? They're kind of right in that situation because he's been hurt and pitched very little since he became a Ranger. Yeah, he got a World Series title, but he had nothing to do with it. So, well, Richard, yeah, I understand. And I want to get to the super chat, the first super chat of the night. Rock 2980. Why do these players care about deferred money? I don't think well, again, it depends on the player, right? If you look at a lot of Boris's clients, they've took a lot of deferred money, right? For years, they've took deferred money, right? Only recently with this whole Dodger situation that a lot of players have been taking a lot of deferred money, like a ton of deferred money. Right? This has been a thing over the last year, ever since Ohtani did it. Now it's actually a thing, and now it's brought to our attention a little bit more. There is deferred money in the Mets contract, but again, I don't think that that's the major breaking point here. I don't think Pete Alonso is coming with a very similar offer of 3 years, around $75 million. Might be extremely similar money-wise to the Mets offer. And then he goes, and then Steve Cohen's going to be like, well, I don't want to do it without deferred money. I don't think that's the holdup. I truly believe that Pete Alonso and Scott Boras, because they were expecting, going into this offseason, most of us were expecting a 5-year deal at the least for Pete Alonso. Right? We were all expecting that, right? We talked about it basically all season. I'm not going to give Pete Alonso more than a 5-year deal. You know, he's probably going to get a 5+ year deal, if not with the Mets somewhere else. And it never came to fruition because nobody was willing to do it. And that's the thing, right? I think the AAV is the big part. I think Pete Alonso offered a 3-year deal and says, I'm willing to take a short-term deal, but I want to be the highest paid first baseman in baseball. Because again, reading Scott Boris's quote, he says this, and let me read it again. Pete's free agent contract structure requests are identical to the standards and practices of other clubs who have signed similarly situated qualifying offer / all-star level players. Nothing different, just established fairness standards. So again, he's talking about Olsen, he's talking about Freeman, and recently, because he talked about qualifying offer, he's talking about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And I think this was a big deal. I remember, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, Pete Alonso's exclusive offer to the Mets was prior to Vladimir Guerrero signing his arbitration number. It might have been after, it might have been before. I'm not 100% sure, but he's clearly talking about the Vladimir Guerrero situation. So if the Mets are offering $23 million per year, let's say they're offering around $70 million per year. Again, I got to do the math once again. So 70 divided by 3 is $23.3 million per year, right? Let's say that's the number. Vladimir Guerrero got what, $28.5 million? So that's about $5.5 million, about $5 million more, a little more than $5 million more. And that's obviously $15 million in total overall contract. If they're looking at Vladimir Guerrero Jr., which the arbitration number is very broad, right? It can be many different numbers, right? One team can have one number, the player can have another number, and then they negotiate. If they can't come to agreement, they go to an arbiter, obviously, right? So these arbitration numbers have nothing to do with signing deals at all, right? Pete Alonso made what last year? About $21 million, $20 million with his arbitration number? Like, these numbers don't, the arbitration numbers have nothing to do with what you're going to sign with a contract. That has nothing to do with it. You have to, and again, Boris said it. That's why, again, okay, thank you. 20 and a half. So it's 20 and a half. So that's where we are. And that's what I don't understand. That's how you caught Scott Boras in a lie. Because if you're talking about the standards and the structures of what other teams have offered and gave contracts to other guys that are similar to Pete Alonso, which is Olsen and Freeman, they're right in the middle of what the Mets are offering. The case, I hope it comes out when all this goddamn Pete Alonso situation, if he's a Met or if he's somewhere else, just sign already. Because I want to know what was the number. Because I feel like I'm very confident that the New York Mets and Steve Cohen is not going to be that upset like he was not happy with these negotiations because of deferred money and a few million bucks. The overall AAV that Pete Alonso offered for that exclusive short-term deal to the Mets, it has to be around $30 million, if not more. It has to be. It just doesn't make sense. Or did he want a lot of the money from a similar, like, say if it is similar money overall, but he wanted upfront that first year with the opt-out. And this is the other thing that can be true about structure. Maybe Pete Alonso wanted a lot of that money upfront in that first year because of the opt-out that he would get from the Mets and any offer that he could possibly sign with the Mets. He probably wanted a lot of it up front, which again probably is close to where 27, 28, $30 million, most of that money up front. And that involves structure of a contract. The Mets might have wanted to split it throughout the 3 years, evenly over the 3 years, even though there's an opt-out. I think Pete Alonso wanted more money up front for the first year so he can get paid what he probably felt like he wants and still have that option to opt out. That can be a considered structure right there. So, yeah, Dead Talk Live, again, the $6 million more, again, we don't know the number. So, again, we're guessing here. Right? But I do feel like that the fact that, yeah, I mean, the structure, again, we know what Pete Alonso is, right? The Mets never said they don't want him. But I don't see any reason why they have to overextend and overpay when nobody else is giving Pete Alonso an offer. There has been no official reports that Pete Alonso has got an offer from the Blue Jays or the Los Angeles Angels. Because if he got a better deal that is close to where his thinking is, he would have been on that team and signed already. It's just that simple. Ken, there's no reason to spam because I know you're on the Pete Alonso side, but Pete Alonso has completely blew up his entire confidence if any fan is on the Pete Alonso side, it's silly. Because Steve Cohen basically said exactly why he didn't like the negotiations with Pete Alonso. And then Scott Boras had to come out and open his mouth, and he got caught in a lie with his quote. Because if you're going by similar structures of contracts based on similar players that have qualifying offers or who had all-star level caliber talent and is considered counterparts of Pete Alonso, you're talking about Olsen, you're talking about Vlad Guerrero, you're talking about Freddie Freeman. He's not better than any of them. Yet, the Mets are still willing to pay in between Olsen and Freeman for 3 years because they clearly see nobody is giving him more than 3 years as of yet. If Toronto would have gave Pete Alonso a 4th year, why didn't he sign? And I can guarantee if they're willing to give the 4th year, they're probably not going to give as much money as the Mets were. So Alonso clearly does not have a deal that is worth signing with another team. This has been a ploy, and these Toronto rumors are what they are. Can it be Boras propaganda? I think it's more Boras propaganda than anything else, because there is no mistaking that the Mets reporters had Toronto almost on the finish line with Pete Alonso, and the Blue Jays reporters came out just after that and said they heard no such thing, that nothing's close. And it seems like the Blue Jay writers were clearly correct, because the next day, Pete Alonso was meeting with the Los Angeles Angels. There's the problem. And that's how you know you're catching Scott Boras in a lie. So Alonso, Boras, has clearly, once again, screwed themselves again. And with Cohen, and now we know that Steve Cohen, David Stearns are lockstep together on this. For a long time, we all thought it was David Stearns was in the room with Pete Alonso and Scott Boras, and Steve Cohen was letting David Stearns do what he needed to do. Now we know that's not true. Steve Cohen has been in this room the whole time. So this is not David Stearns' fault here. Even Steve Cohen believes in this number of years and money. And again, he said it. He's still flexible. He's still open to negotiations. And he said it's up to Pete Alonso here. But at some point, when the Mets keep on moving on, because they're slowly moving on here, we heard about the trades that we're going to talk about in just a bit. But at some point, and Cohen said it, at some point, we're going to move on to the point where we can't bring Pete Alonso back at all because the roster is going to be filled. So it's in Pete Alonso's court now. Either take the Mets contract offer or keep on playing games with clearly the false reporting of him being close to signing with the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Los Angeles Angels don't seem that serious. So where are we now? Let's talk about the next topic that has nothing to do with players, but it has to do with the new Mets new road jersey that has remnants of the 1987 road jerseys of the New York Mets. The New York script on the jersey was from the 1 year the New York Mets wore that New York script on their road jerseys in 1987. They wore it for 1 year and then they abolished it. I didn't like the City Connect jerseys when they first came out, when they were first, introduced, and we saw them, and I saw them on all social media pages. I didn't like them until I seen it in person. Once I seen it in person and on the players, I loved them. So I'm not the biggest fan of this road jersey. I'll be clear about that. But until I see it on the players on the field and in person, that's when I'll make my final decision, because the jerseys always look better in person on the players and in one of the team shops when you see it firsthand. And I put up a poll on YouTube, and a lot of people seem to like the jersey. I wish they would have had a little bit like an outline of white, even with the blue and orange. Or maybe I know somebody said, why did they put the silver like they did in 2015 in the lettering, and then outline it with either with orange, and it probably would have been really nice. But they look fine. See, I was born in 1987, so that script, New York, is kind of sentimental to me. So I kind of like it. I like the script. I don't like the blue on blue, so to speak. I think the silver where the blue is inside the script, I'd like. It would have been probably better, but it's not bad. Now, I do wonder, are they going to change their hats as well? Because they haven't really made that. Because I wonder, are they just going to wear gray pants with an orange trim on the side, or a blue strip on the side of their gray pants that are similar colors to the jersey? And are the hats are just going to be regular Met hats, the blue, or are they going to be a combination or a similar color to what we have on the jersey? It is interesting, but it's not a bad looking jersey. They could have done a lot worse. I'm not a big fan of the neck pipeline. I don't really like that too much. I do like that it's a fitted. It's not a button down. That's pretty cool. I like that. That's kind of cool. But until I see it in person and on the players, well, like I'm not going to make a final judgment, but easy. I understand it should have been gray, but you're not making a new custom jersey for the road and making it basically the same color that you already have it. What they were trying to do, they were trying to incorporate history with what the Mets currently had around the 2015, 2016 years, where they were the blue with the gray pants on the road with the silver lettering that said New York, right? So they're trying to bring history and nuance and the new age together. I don't think it's ugly. I do like the orange pin around the I like thank God they put orange around the neck and on the sleeve. It makes it, pop a little bit more. But again, I didn't like the city jerseys at first until I seen them in person on the players and in the shop. I was like, wow, it pops. It looks better. It's hard to judge. Like, I'm definitely going to buy I'm going to buy one of these jerseys. Hell yeah. I do have the 1987 road jersey with similar script. Obviously, the gray jersey with the New York script and the racing stripe. I have a gray one. I have one in my closet. I want to get this. So I'm going to figure, I already got a Lindor jersey. I got a Soto jersey. Maybe I don't know who I'm going to get, but maybe I'll get another Soto jersey in that. I don't like buying jerseys with guys that are not on long-term deals, because you see what happens, right? All those Pete Alonso jerseys are going to go out the window, the hundreds of thousands that were bought. So we'll see. So the road jerseys are cool. I want to see them in person. I'm going to order one and buy one and see how they look. And I'll give me my, feed. I'll give you my feedback with that. All right. So the next thing, when it talks about the first base situation, we know the Mets are talking about Spencer Torkelson and Ryan Mountcastle of the Baltimore Orioles and the Detroit Tigers, respectfully. The Mets are clearly not waiting for Pete Alonso. They're going to do what they need to do to fill up their roster. And if that means Torkelson or Mountcastle in a trade to put at first base, they're going to do it. Because they already spoke very highly that they like this lineup. They like what they have currently in this lineup. Obviously the Juan Soto edition is obvious. They like Lindor. They like Nimmo. They like Vientos. They believe that Alvarez is going to have a bounce back year. Alvarez even spoke about it, that he's been working on, having better pitch selection at the plate, being more patient, being a better hitter. And I think that's something that we all wanted from Francisco Alvarez. He was just swinging at everything. If he's a little more patient at the plate and wait for his pitch and be more productive at the plate and, be a better hitter, it's just going to make him better. And the power is going to come. So they like the lineup. And again, I actually messaged a Detroit Tiger insider reporter, basically. I want to see if I can get him on a Mets hot stove so we can have a conversation on what are they looking for a Spencer Torkelson, right? Because he was the number one pick for them. He had a great 2023, 33 home runs. I think it was 90-something RBI, almost 100 RBIs. And he didn't have a good season last year. He got hurt last year, didn't have a good season last year. What do they see in him? And he has 2 more years of control. So it is something to look at, because that is a guy that clearly showed potential 2 years ago. He has power. You would think, being in a better lineup than the Detroit Tigers, putting them between Vientos and Soto, you would think he can see better pitches. He can be a better player. But again, you don't know until it happens. I would not be mad if the Mets trade for Spencer Torkelson. I don't think the Mets can wait for this Pete Alonso nonsense to come to an end. They got to move on. And I know me and Chris yesterday on Hot Stove talked about we would rather have Ryan Mountcastle because of the fact that he's very good defensively at first base. Torkelson is too, by the way. But Mountcastle is more of, career-wise, he has more consistency, right? He'll hit 15 to 20 home runs. He'll bat you 265, 270. He'll give you 65, 75 RBIs. He's been consistent throughout his career. So you know what you're getting from him. You'll get good defense, and you'll get a decent bat in the lineup, right? You would have to move maybe somebody up a little bit more in the lineup, probably a Nimmo or an Alvarez, and throw Mountcastle around 6th in the 6th or 7th in the lineup. But it can be doable. Spencer Torkelson is just more intriguing to me because of the fact that he's still young. He showed a lot of promise. He showed a lot of power in Detroit, by the way, which is a big ballpark, one of the bigger ones in baseball. You know how cold it is for most early part of the season. So he's hitting balls in very, very dense air and cold air in Detroit. So it's not an easy ballpark to hit home runs. So if you can hit 30 plus home runs in a ballpark like that, you can definitely hit 25 to 30 home runs in CitiField in other ballparks without an issue. Now, he was injured last year. I just want to see exactly what the injury was, because he didn't play a lot of games last year. I know that for a fact. He played let me just double check just to give you the right well, Fredo, I think that's disrespectful to say Torkelson's another Baty. Baty never had a year like Torkelson. Torkelson at least showed it at the big league level. Baty has not. So that's kind of disrespectful to Torkelson. Torkelson actually showed something at the big league level when Baty, all he showed is one first-time home run in Atlanta. That's all he showed. He showed nothing else. So let me see. Torkelson batted 219, 10 home runs, 75 hits. He played in all these stupid stats. God, I don't care about that. He played in 92 games. So he missed almost 70 games. He missed 70 games. That's what it was. So he missed 70 games last year. He had 21 doubles, 10 home runs, 37 RBIs. So in another 70 games, right? Let's say if he would have stayed healthy, right? Because I think the injury clearly was an issue of why he didn't have close to or similar numbers than what he had in 2023. He had 31 home runs, 34 doubles, and 94 RBIs. And he batted 233. So he's not an average guy. That's a fact, right? He's going to probably bat 220 to 235, somewhere around there. But again, he's only 24 years old. And he's got 2 more years after this year of control. So he's not going to come cheap, but I don't think you have to give a ton, because he had a bad year last year. and he was hurt, and he didn't play a lot. So he missed 70 games. If you do the math, and he played another, let's say another 50 games. Let's say he played 150 games. You would think he would have close to 25 home runs, right? But if you do the math, it's about a little over a home run every 3 to 4 games, right? So if you do the math, I would say 25 home runs. He would be close to it. He had 37 RBIs in 92 games. So you would think he would have about 80 or 85 RBIs. So he was right on par with basically what he did in 2023, close to it, right? A few home runs less, few RBIs less, but he clearly has the power. Again, so he hit 10 home runs in 92 games. So you could say around 20 to 25 home runs, around 80 to 85 RBIs. That's where you're getting. And he's a doubles machine as well. So he just don't get his RBIs on home runs. He gets it in other ways, which is interesting. I take a shot on Torkelson. Now, I don't know how much it's going to cost, right? You can probably put Baty in that trade. You can I don't know what they're going to look for. That's why I'm trying to have somebody that is associated with the Detroit Tigers so I can get a better understanding if they really are trying to trade Torkelson and trying to move on from him, and what would they want for Torkelson. I think Mountcastle's probably easier to get because I think he's on his last year of his deal, so it might be cheaper. And Mountcastle, again, has consistency. He'll hit you between 15 and 20 home runs. Bet you 260. Not a ton of RBIs, around 70, 75. Nothing special, but quality hitter. And with good defense, Torkelson is the better defender over Mountcastle. But, again, well, Brad, I understand what you're talking about, right? But Torkelson has more upside. And I think, and again, he has control. And I think that's something that you also have to look at, right? He has the upside. Again, with the injured season last year, it's hard to say, can he have a similar season, if not similar or close to that of what he had in 2023? Because he was clearly injured last year. So that kind of stopped his production because he didn't play. If he would have played 160 games, would he have similar numbers? And we probably wouldn't have been talking about Torkelson because Detroit wouldn't trade him. Because he had an injury-plagued season and had a down season last year, the Tigers are clearly thinking about it. Yeah, Chester, I see it might be a little bit more. I think you have to give a top 10 prospect. I think you would probably have to give, I think you would probably have to give a Baty and, or, you could say Kevin Parada. You can give Kevin Parada and probably, it's tough. Maybe a Carson Benj or something like that. Somebody that has a few years to come up the system. Kevin Parada, I think he could probably be up if not late this year, next year. So, but it could be possible. Yeah, Brad, he also can be a dude. But again, the rumors are out there. And I did decide to look at like Detroit, like I'm nuts with this stuff. Whenever I hear rumors about a player from another city, I start listening to their sports talk radio. They've talked about that on Detroit radio, on Michigan radio in Detroit, on sports talk radio there. Besides talking about the disaster of the Detroit Lions, they were talking about the Tigers. They were, they were saying that, that they have a top prospect first baseman in their system that they believe is ready to go. So if they believe he's ready to go, Torkelson's blocking him. So if they can get 2, possibly 3 top 25 prospects for Torkelson, you add into your farm system along with giving room to your top first base prospect. So that's what they're looking at as well. And again, you kind of reset the clock here where even though Torkelson has 3 years left before he's a free agent, you get into his arbitration years. And with Detroit not willing to spend a lot of money, that arbitration year is going to be costly to them. So they're trying to avoid his big arbitration years. So if you bring up your top first base prospect, you reset that and he's on his rookie deal. So that's where you have to look at as well. Now, if the Mets are willing to look at Torkelson very seriously, David Stearns has to actually give up prospects. Again, I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it. If he does that, I'd be a little shocked because I still don't believe David Stearns is willing to give up prospects. But if he does, I'll be like, okay, maybe we shall see. Well, again, Truman, you're talking about Crochet. You would have to give up 4 top 10 prospects. It's a lot less for Torkelson. So, and I want to check the Detroit Tigers before we move on to the next topic. I just want to see one more thing when it comes to Torkelson. Let's see. Detroit Tigers. Top prospects. All right, let's see. Let it load, let it load. Of course, it's acting up. Why wouldn't it? Alrighty. So it's not making me do it, and it's kind of annoying, but that's all right. All right, let's see. I just want to see something really quick. All right. Let's go to a better website that actually opens. All right, let's see. Here we go. And it doesn't say where they play. Okay, here we go. So they do have a couple of top prospects that can play first base, but are infielders, but are definitely first basemen. So they got about 2 guys that can play first base that are top 10 prospects. So it's going to be very interesting, and we'll see. If I would be shocked if David Stearns gives up prospects, because I still don't believe he will. But if he does, I'd be a little shocked, and I would be like, "Oh, okay. Well, he's willing to do it." Now, again, I agree with you guys. I'd rather do it for a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I'd rather do it for Garrett Crochet than a guy that is, Torkelson is a question mark. Can he repeat or have similar numbers than 2023, or is he just a failed prospect? It's a question mark for sure. So it is what it is at this point. Until it happens, I'm not going to believe it. I don't believe David Stearns is going to want to give up top prospects because he hasn't done it since taking over as the Mets president of baseball ops. We'll have to see. So next up is the Scherzer interest. I know this got everybody excited if you're a Mets fan. The Mets, along with many other teams, watched the bullpen workout from Max Scherzer. Again, all the reports. I didn't just look at the Mets reports, but I looked at the Yankees reporters. I looked at the Giants reporters, the Cubs reporters. About 4 or 5 teams. I think there was 10 teams that went to watch his workout in his bullpen session. I went to 5 different teams' different reporters, and they all said similar things. Max Scherzer looked strong, looked healthy, had bite on his pitches. His fastball is not the 96, 97, 98. He's throwing around 92 to 94. That's where he was throwing with the Mets after, in 2022, he was throwing around 95, 96. But, in 2023, he was throwing around 92, 93. That's where he is. But again, Scherzer is still a pitcher. He's up there in age. We all know that. He's probably going to cost you around what Verlander got, around 1 year, $15 million. That's what he's going to cost, probably around that number. He's not going to be a number 1 or a number 2 or number 3. He's probably going to be a number 5 or a number 6. Would I rather have Jack Flaherty? Absolutely. If you put Max Scherzer as your 6th starter, you shouldn't be worrying about this guy going to be terrible, because he could be, but he is a 6th starter. And are you willing to give Tyler McGill another chance, or a Griffin Cannon? 2 guys that, at least McGill, we know what he is at this point, right? We know what he is. We know where he is. We know what he is. Griffin Cannon is a guy that I think you can throw into the bullpen as like a long man and a spot starter in an emergency situation. You can put him out there. I don't think Griffin Cannon is going to be he's either going to be a long man in the bullpen, or he's going to be in the minor leagues as depth. I don't think the Mets like Tyler McGill as, some might believe. So I don't want to give Max Scherzer 1 year, $15 million, but I understand the logic when you're going to throw him as your 6th starter. Yeah, I know. Pinterest, everybody says they would rather go with McGill until we see McGill pitch. And then we're like, why is this goddamn guy in the rotation? Right? So let's put McGill out of it here, because every time he gets a spot in the rotation and the Mets give him a chance, Met fans can't wait to get him out of the rotation. So I don't think they want McGill a part of this. I think they want McGill as depth. Him or Griffin Cannon are going to fight it out for being a long man in the bullpen. That's what's going to happen. At least with Max Scherzer, you're going to get, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a guy that is going to give you everything on the mound. He is a bulldog on the mound. He is not the same pitcher that the Mets signed in 2022. We all know that, right? He's going to throw between 92 and 94, right? He's still got a very good slider. If he can remain healthy, again, guys, it was only 9 games last year, but he pitched to a sub-4 ERA. So he was pitching somewhat decent. When you have a sub-4 ERA and you're not a number 3 or number 2 or a number 1, that's not bad. That's basically what Severino gave you. So I think if you do it, I know people are going to revolt and basically, have pitchforks and ready to drive those pitchforks into CitiField and start going crazy. It could be a lot worse. Now, I'd rather have Jack Flaherty. I'm telling you this, right? I'm sick of seeing Tyler McGill because he'll pitch one good game and then he won't pitch a good game for another month or two. I'm sick of Tyler McGill. He's got too many chances. He had an opportunity last year to be in a rotation that was very questionable, and he still couldn't keep his job. Why give him another shot again? Throw him in the bullpen as a long man. Let him fight it out with Griffin Cannon. If he loses the job, he'll be another depth starter in the minor leagues. So, would I rather have Jack Flaherty? Absolutely. Max Scherzer, not exciting, but he's going to be your number 5 or your number 6 starter. He's not going to be something that we're going to be expecting. He's not pitching game 1 of the NLCS. All right, we know that. So that's where we are right now. Last topic, until I get to the channel announcement, I'm going to make sure everybody knows about what's going on with the channel and what I'm going to do. Brett Baty, a real shot. Yeah. Now, if the Mets don't make a trade for Torkelson or Mountcastle and don't bring back Pete Alonso, it seems like either Vientos or Baty are going to get an opportunity at first base. And there also was a report and was talked about at Amazin Day at CitiField that the Mets see Luis Angel Acuna as a big part of this roster in 2025. So that gets people excited. That doesn't mean he's playing second base. That means whoever might be playing first base who is not playing first base will probably play third base. And Brett Baty, obviously, Juan Soto took his number, and now he's wearing number 7. And I know people were like, oh my God, how can he wear number 7? Jose Reyes. Well, if you listen to Brett Baty growing up, his favorite player was Jose Reyes. And, he said that. And he likes that number. He can wear that number. It's not retired. So he's wearing number 7 this year. So, because obviously Juan Soto's wearing number 22. So, am I okay with that? God, no. Now, the Mets, somewhere in the organization, I don't know if it's, I'm thinking it's David Stearns. It might be Steve Cohen. It might be all of them in the organization. Still believe Brett Baty has what it takes to be a big leaguer. I don't agree with that. I don't think that it should be a combination of Luis Angel Acuna, Brett Baty, and Vientos for third and first. I don't think that is exciting to me. Now, the prospect huggers are loving this. But when they fail, they'll be the first to crucify these kids. Right? I want a guy that has been proven. That's why I'm fine with Pete Alonso coming back. I'd rather have Torkelson and Mountcastle. At least they showed it at the big league level. I don't want Brett Baty to get another chance when he has not proven that he can even keep his job, let alone show anything at the major league level. He goes down to the minors, looks like Babe Ruth. Comes up to the majors, He's a ground ball machine. He can't lift the ball. We know he has the power. We believe he has the talent, but if you can't lift the ball at the major league level, you're not going to be successful. So, if the Mets don't get Torkelson, they don't get Mountcastle, they don't get Alonso, it's looking like the 2025 season of Vientos, Acuna, and Baty at the corner positions. Yippee. I'm not excited about that. Now, I was a very big fan of Brett Baty, right? When I went, I think it was, I don't remember what year in spring training, and Brett Baty was there, Vientos was there, a lot of the top prospects we've been talking about. And Brett Baty just looked natural. His swing is beautiful. He looked good at third. He just looked good. He looked like a player. And I was excited about Brett Baty. And plus, I'm a left-handed batter, so I always have a soft spot for left-handed hitters. It was just, he just looked like a player. And it's so annoying because I want Baty to be good. But when you're trying to win, and I believe that's what the Mets are trying to do, even though they're not really showing it player acquisition-wise. But to tell me that you're going into the 2025 season where Brett Baty being a major option at one of the corner positions is not going to make me feel confident going into the season. I'm sorry. It's just not. I don't like it. I don't want it. I'd rather you trade for Torkelson and Mountcastle, put one of those guys at first base if it's not Pete Alonso. I don't want to see a reclamation, evaluation for Brett Baty. There's no need. I've seen him already. The Mets gave him the job when Vientos outperformed him in spring training last year. Yet they still gave it to Brett Baty. And I understand their logic because that's their crown jewel. That's their top third base prospect. I understand that. Vientos was kind of on the fringe, let's be honest. He was a DH, first base, third base guy that didn't really have a position, and he can hit. But Baty was their prize prospect. So I understand them doing that, but he did not outperform Vientos. Vientos outperformed him at the bat. Yet they gave it to Brett Baty. And as you've seen, we all saw it. Brett Baty lost his job to Mark Vientos because he wasn't hitting. And Vientos got the job and never let it go. So I don't want Brett Baty being here. And I don't want him up with the team sitting on the bench either. Like, he's just wasting away in the minors at this point. I'd rather just trade him. Maybe you can trade him in a deal to get a Torkelson or a Mountcastle and package him with somebody else, one or two other guys, to get a Torkelson or a Mountcastle. That just makes more sense. But we'll have to wait and see. Again, there's so much to deal with, so much to wait for as we still wait for what's going on with Pete Alonso. Again, if you haven't seen it, I played the video of Steve Cohen talking about the negotiations between himself, Stearns, Boris, and Alonso. Listen back to that in the beginning of the show. And if you could just go on social media and find it yourself. Cohen said, in just the way it is, that he don't like the way the structure of the deal is. I think it's such a broad statement. Structure can mean a lot of things. It could mean it could still be a very similar deal with the Mets offer, but Pete Alonso wanted more money up front on the first year of the deal with the opt-out. We could have said, I'll take the $70 million for 3 years, but I want 30 of that up front in the first year. Maybe the Mets were not willing to do that. That's a possibility. It could be something with deferments. It could mean so many things. Something in the contract Cohen did not like. So we finally figured out and confirmed that Steve Cohen has been in these negotiations the entire time, not just leaving it to David Stearns. The contract that Pete Alonso exclusively gave to the Mets was very much declined by Steve Cohen and the Mets. Where are we right now? Cohen says he's still flexible and he's still open to negotiations. But now it's up to Pete Alonso, he says. But he also said the Mets are moving on. And at some point while moving on, if they acquire more players, it's less and less likely they have an opening or availability on the roster to add a Pete Alonso. So that's where we are with everything. The road jerseys are cool. They're all right. I want to see them in person before I made my final judgment. It could have been a lot worse, right? I didn't like the City Connect jerseys at first until I saw it in person and on the players. So I'm not going to make a final judgment on the road jersey as of yet. Torkelson and Mountcastle, we know the Mets have been at least paying attention, if not discussing a trade for Torkelson with the Detroit Tigers. Mountcastle, a little bit of rumors about them looking at him. The Mets were in the workout session of Max Scherzer. They have interest. We'll see if that comes to fruition. And Brett Baty looks like, at the moment, if the Mets don't get a first baseman of Alonso, Torkelson, or Mountcastle, that Baty could be a big part of this team in the 2025 season. Last but not least, guys, channel announcement. So anybody who's watching this and is a member or is going to be deciding in the near future for the 2025 season to become a member, on February 1st, I'm going to be structuring a new membership. I know I have 3 different levels. I'm going to make one level. It's going to be exclusively one membership price. I'm going to figure out the price soon, because with the price comes things that the members are going to get. I'm going to be doing during the season, when spring training officially starts during the season, I'm going to do live shows for members weekly, once a week. You're going to have access to videos that I post before anybody else, before it goes public, for at least an hour before it goes public. Also, you're going to have the channel stickers that I'm going to make new ones of that you can put in the comments during shows, during live streams, during the season. I'm also going to do, I did this early on during my channel membership. I'm going to do Mets wallpapers. So I'm going to make like all the graphics that you see on my backgrounds and thumbnails and all that. I'm going to make backgrounds once a week of Mets players, CitiField, all types of stuff. And I'm going to post it exclusively for the members on the community page. And you can use it as like, a phone background or a laptop background and, backshot or a TV, whatever. So all that's going to come together as well. And once a month, I'm going to do member giveaway. I'm going to do whatever giveaway that for that month, the members are going to have an opportunity. I'm going to do the wheel for the members, and members are going to get a giveaway once a month starting in March when the season starts. So every month, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. And if the Mets are in the playoffs in October, we'll do another giveaway. So again, it's going to be one membership. You're going to get live stream once a week for members. You're going to get access to whatever video I post prior to it going public for the first hour. You're going to get channel icons, channel stickers that you members can see and they can use in comments during live streams. You're going to get wallpaper graphics that you can put on your phones, laptops, TVs, wherever, and giveaways once a month for members. And we're going to do that wheel, and the wheel is going to decide who wins, and that member is going to get the giveaway for that month. So on February 1st, you're going to see new channel membership. The price is going to be there. It's only going to be one membership. You either want to be a member or not. So if you're thinking about becoming a member of Talkin' Mets and Rob, the channel, I appreciate it. I love the support. And you're going to get all that in the channel membership. So think about it. Again, it's your choice. I'm not forcing anybody. You don't have to. But you're definitely going to be appreciated if you do. And if you don't, it's all good, right? You still come on, you hang out with me, it's all good. So with that said, guys, look out on February 1st. The channel membership is going to change. Instead of the 3 levels of channel memberships, it's only going to be one price membership, and you're going to get all those things I just mentioned. So if you're deciding to become a member, look out for that on February 1st. With that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to another Mets Talk Live right here on the channel. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching on X and on YouTube. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing another Mets Hot Stove with myself and Chris. With that said, guys, everybody have a great night. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you next time on the channel, guys. Have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets.
In the dead of night, full of echo. Concrete jungle, dreams bust to grow. Mets in the air, chase glory, no fear. Broken backs, but hearts steer clear. OMG, the chaos, what a scene. Streets buzzing like a machine. Creamers from the